Well, the moment has finally arrived. Coach K has coached his last home game. He's officially retired, as we all know in the sports world, and we're just a few weeks away from seeing the last of him. And I felt compelled to make this video after seeing essentially the slobberfest that ESPN put on for Coach K. Now, you can see by my background, I'm a UNC fan. I graduated from UNC as an undergrad in 1997. With that said, I'm going to first state that it is undoubted that Coach K is one of the most accomplished coaches of all time. He's got the most wins. He has 5 national titles, which is second of any head coach after John Wooden. You can't argue with his success. However, after seeing some of the coverage on ESPN in particular, I was watching Around the Horn, hosted by Tony Reale, and so they did a segment the day before the game with Carolina, the home finale for Coach K, and the 4 so-called journalists that they had on the show that day just it almost made me mouth vomit to see just how they kind of mindlessly praised K and said things about him being the best coach of all time, which is fine. Um, but as a Carolina fan, I was sitting there thinking, well, I know he's been great, but I think there have been some other coaches who coached at the same time as him who were as good, maybe even slightly better in some metrics. And so I thought I would just dig up some stats and try and provide what I'm going to call a biased, unbiased overview of Coach K. And so the first thing that I thought I would do is, well, let's compare Coach K to Dean Smith in an apples to apples scenario. And so a lot of people will kind of talk about how Coach K came in kind of in the middle of Dean's tenure when Dean was already established and so forth. But I thought, well, let's just look at their performance where they overlapped. And so here's what I dug up. So Coach K started coaching at Duke 1980-81, and Dean Smith retired from UNC in 96-97. As a side note, my senior year at UNC was a sad day. But at any rate, here are the metrics. So Coach K had 400 wins to Dean's 472. Coach K had 5 ACC regular season titles to Dean's 8 ACC regular season titles. I like to focus on regular season titles because I think that kind of shows the true nature of how well a team did in its conference over the course of the season versus looking at tournament titles. So this was kind of, I think a better head-to-head comparison about the longer run success of a team. And so Dean had them there 8-5. Now K again phenomenally in that time period had 7 Final Fours to Dean's 5, and of course by the time Dean retired, he and Coach K had both had 2 national titles. And then I finally just note there, in a head-to-head matchup, Dean did pretty well against Coach K. He had a 24-12 record against Duke while Coach K was coaching. Again, a lot of folks will say, well, a lot of those wins came when Coach K first started out and he was building the program and they struggled. But I looked it up. So 13 of those 24 wins came in that second half of that time era, so from 89 to 97. Dean Smith was 13-7 against Coach K, and that included a 7-game winning streak in there as well. So I think here, at worst, Dean is right on par with Coach K. Some might argue he was more successful, especially if you look at the ACC regular season titles and 72 more wins in that time stretch. But 2 national titles each. K had 7 Final Fours. So I would say, okay, Dean Smith and Coach K are pretty even. At bottom line, there was a coach who was around at the time who was as good, if not perhaps slightly better than Coach K. So whereas the narrative seemed to be that Coach K is the GOAT, the greatest of all time, there's no one who can match him, and so forth. So I think this kind of is some pretty compelling evidence. Okay, well, that was Dean. Um, After Dean left, Coach K couldn't be matched, right? Well, okay, well let's look at the era when Roy Williams and Coach K overlapped. So here we have a comparison of Coach K versus Roy Williams. So Roy Williams came to UNC in 2003, 2004 after Matt Doherty. And of course, as most of you probably know, Roy Williams retired last year at the end of the 2021 season. And so over this stretch, we can see the comparison here. Coach K with 507 wins to Roy's 485. Interestingly, Roy had 9 ACC regular season titles to Coach K's 3 in that time stretch. So when Roy came back to UNC as head coach, he definitely dominated the ACC. 5 Final Fours for Roy to 3 for Coach K. And Roy had 3 national titles to Coach K's 2 national titles. Head-to-head, Coach K had the slight edge. Roy was 19 and 23 versus Coach K. So slight edge there to K. I wouldn't say that's dominant. That seems to be fairly even. 4 more victories for Coach K. So again, I find it hard to kind of accept this narrative that Coach K was unprecedented. What he's done in college basketball has never been matched. We can see here clearly that just if you go 15 miles down the road from Durham and the campus of Duke University, there was a university that had a pretty good basketball program that at worst matched up evenly with Coach K, and again, in some metrics, maybe slightly better. So if you combine Roy and Dean, 5 titles to the 4 for Coach K over those overlapping time frames, a couple more Final Fours. Actually, Final Fours would be about the same, and definitely more ACC regular season titles for Roy and Dean. Okay, so the argument might be, well, okay, we're comparing North Carolina, and it took 2 coaches from North Carolina to match K. That's not fair. All right, well, so I decided, I think there was another pretty good program that overlapped with Coach K during his tenure. So I went back and dug up Jim Calhoun's record. So of course, if you're a college basketball fan, you know Jim Calhoun is head coach of the UConn Huskies in the Big East Conference from 1986-87 till 2011 and 12. And here's their head-to-head comparison. So the wins, Coach K has the edge, 732 to 625. Final Fours, that would be 10-4 in favor of Coach K. So of course this is definitely so 86-87 to 11-12. That's the prime chunk of Coach K's career. So 10 Final Fours through that span, quite impressive, no matter whether you're a Duke fan or not. But if we look at the national titles, 4 national titles for Coach K to Calhoun's 3. An edge there for Coach K, but 4-3. And if you look at the head-to-head matchup, because obviously UConn wasn't in the same conference, so they didn't play head-to-head very often. But Calhoun was 4-3 versus Coach K, with 2 of those wins coming in the Final Four, one in the title game and one in the national semifinal. So on the biggest stage, Calhoun found a way to knock off Coach K's Duke teams twice. So, okay, again, slight edge here to Coach K, wins Final Fours, national titles. But, 3 national titles for Calhoun over that same overlapping time span from when he was at UConn and Coach K was at Duke. So I think again here, slight edge to K. But there's another coach who I think, again, one could argue was pretty much on par with Coach K. If you look at the head-to-head matchup, maybe even give Calhoun a slight edge. I would give K the edge here. But again, this narrative that Coach K is untouchable, and there's no one around who's been nearly as good as Coach K. I think it's hard to argue, and so I'll sum up by saying I'm really disappointed with the folks at ESPN. So if any of you who weren't Duke fans who saw the game Saturday and the run up to the game, it was it was pretty sickening. And then during the game to see a team um, where their coaches are wearing sweaters that have an emblem of the coach, right? So they had these little K shields on their chests, on their quarter zips for all the coaching staff. Didn't say Duke. It had a K shield. Even the players' uniforms had a little K shield um, embroidered on the jerseys. And then, of course, if you all saw the former Duke players, they're all wearing the K shield shirts. So I just find it really disappointing, almost sickening, that a game that's supposed to be about the college athlete, it's supposed to be about the players, and Coach K allowed this to become all about him. Now, maybe he didn't want to do all of that, and maybe the Duke staff and the university did all of this, but I think he certainly would have had the power to say no. We're not going to have the coaches wear a shirt with a K shield on it. Um, yeah, it's I don't know what else to say about that. So at any rate, I felt compelled to put this out. I haven't seen really anyone give a more unbiased analysis of this, and I hope if you see this on YouTube, share it. Spread the word. If you're an ESPN fan, maybe send it to Tony Reali's Twitter feed. Maybe send it to Wilbon and Kornheiser's Twitter feeds. Maybe we'll get some actual real analysis of, okay, K was good. He was really a really good coach, but there were some other coaches, a couple of them only about 15 miles down the road, who were just as good and didn't get the self promotion that K got for some reason, and for some reason didn't get nearly the promotion on ESPN as K got. So spread the word, send it out there. Maybe we'll put a dent in this narrative that no one can touch Coach K. I think the evidence is pretty clear that there were some other pretty good coaches right on par with him. So, all right, hope you enjoyed that, and go Heels.